a Jeep and a glider with no engine, and the Jeep made the glider very heavy when it was trying to land, and it would not always land nicely. It was harmful to your health. I said, I have a problem. I said, I get airsick. He said, goodbye. And instead of being in the U.S. Army Signal Corps, I became the U.S. Army Air Corps. Went into, even though they knew when I told the other people that I don't fly.
Cool.
And then I was transferred to the Air Force. When I got to Hawaii at a place called Haycom Field, which is right next door to Pearl Harbor. I was there for 1 year, and for my 3 years in the Pacific area, wherever I went by boat, never flew. And I was an Air Force sergeant.
All right. What wisdom do you have to help us through the pandemic?
I have a very simple philosophy.
Yeah.
Don't go anywhere, and I don't.
What year were you born?
1921.
Wow.
In October, I'll be 101.
Wow. Mazel tov. Congratulations. Sorry, one more question before we end up. So I want to, maybe people who are watching don't know, what did you do for a living during most of your life? Is there a certain career you had?
Yes, I was an accountant. I would do income taxes and do financial reports. That's what I did both in Baltimore and Miami. So I left Baltimore in the mid-1970s.
Okay. Been in Miami a long time. Wonderful.
50 years.
Wonderful. How many children do you have?
I have two, a daughter and son.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's it. I think we've come to the end of the questions.
Don't forget Mark. Give my regards to Mark and Mark and Mark and Mark.
I will. I will. We miss seeing you, but I'm glad to see you today. So nice to see you today. And I just want to thank Carla for helping facilitating this. Thank you, Carla.
Yeah, I thank you very much.
Have a wonderful day and enjoy the day. Goodbye.
You too. Nice work, Elijah.
Thank you.
The door vador nagid goleva.
And today we have Mateo, who's going to be talking to Lil Cher, who's been with the temple for many years.
I'm 13 and I'm in 7th grade.
Would you like me to tell you how old I am? I am 102 years old, and I was born in 1920. And what else would you like to know about me?
Do you remember the attack on Pearl Harbor?
Yes, I do. I was just out of college, and I graduated from college in June of 1941. And that December is when Pearl Harbor was. It was December 7th of that same year. So I was at a function for young people, and suddenly they stopped the function, and someone got on the stage and said Pearl Harbor was just bombed.
How did World War II affect your life?
Well, by the time we had World War II, I was then married, and it affected my life. Even before I got married, it affected my life because most of the boys I knew were sent overseas, and they were in the Army or the Navy. So that's the way that World War II at first affected my life.
Where were you in World War II?
Where was I? I was in New Jersey, and I was married and had 2 little boys.
Do you remember anyone who was killed in World War II?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I remember a cousin of mine was killed in World War II, and some of my friends, boys I knew, were killed in World War II.
That's horrible.
Oh, it was horrible. It was a bad time to live, but then we got through it.
How did you get through it?
How do we get through it? Being strong and just trying to have a normal life.
Where were you when President Kennedy was assassinated?
When he was assassinated, I remember exactly where I was. I was buying some clothes. I was in a department store, and I was in the dressing room, and the saleswoman came in and told me that President Kennedy had been assassinated.
Did you have any brothers and sisters?
I had 2 sisters. We were 4 years apart. We were 3 sisters. And my youngest sister is 8 years younger than I am, and my middle sister was 4 years younger. I was the oldest, and I am now the matriarch of the family.
Do you remember being a Jewish kid back then, and did you celebrate Shabbat?
Oh yes, I was a Jewish kid, and my family belonged to a temple, and we used to go on the high holidays. That's when we went to the temple. We always had a Passover Seder at my mother's house. My mother was really the hostess with the mostest, and all Jewish holidays were celebrated at my mother's house.
Do you think it was different being a kid now versus when you were a kid?
Yes, because now you have all kinds of technology. You have many more things than we had. We had to rely on each other as kids. We had parties, we had connections, we belonged to the Jewish Community Center, and we belonged to organizations. So today, you kids are able to reach each other much more easily than we did. We had telephones.
Do you think the technology now is helpful?
Of course it's helpful. It's making your life easier.
Do you have any wisdom to help us through this pandemic?
The pandemic has made all of our lives very different. And it makes you sad because you can't do the things that we used to do. We are being quarantined, and we're being told to wear masks, which we're doing, and our lives are just completely upside down.
What's something that you would like to do once the pandemic's over?
I'd like to see more of my children and my grandchildren, and I just would like to get out of my apartment. I feel almost like I'm in a prison, but we just have to abide by this if we want to get through it.
I had a question I wanted to ask you, Lou, that I don't think that, it just occurred to me. Do you have a memory of the Depression, knowing that, did you know there was a Depression?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I can remember men eating apples and being in line, just trying to get something to eat. And I can remember my father's effect from the Depression. We actually, after the, we had a house that went into foreclosure, and I, as the oldest child, I felt the effects. My sisters did not.
Yeah.
They don't even remember some of these horrible things. And I can remember my mother having to go to the bank to save money.
Wow.
Yes, I remember the Depression very well.
How did you make your way to Temple Israel and Miami, actually?
Well, Arnold Scher was my third husband. My two husbands died, and I was a widow, and I met him in Israel, and 8 months after we met, we got married, and we were married in Temple Israel in July of 1970. The rabbi was Rabbi Narrett, but he was away. He was in the hospital. He was sick. And they had a new rabbi by the name of Barry Chabachnikov. And his first function as a rabbi at Temple Israel was to marry both of us. And we were married in Gomanik Chapel. There were 11 people at the wedding. Now, why did we go to Temple Israel? Arnold Scher was the well-known bachelor of Temple Israel. He was 48 years old and had never been married. So we were married in Temple Israel, and I've been a member since. But everybody was eager to meet the woman who married Arnold Scher. I love meeting you, and I want you to have a good bar mitzvah, because I know that Temple Israel will give that to you. Mateo, I hope you go to college, and I want you to study a lot. But before you go to college, just remember that one of the most important things in life is reading. Just read lots of books.
Yeah.
And good luck to you.
Thank you.
לדור ודור נגיד גולבה.
Hi, Gigi. Hi, Mike.
Hi.
Ezra, how you doing?
Good.
We have with us today Mrs. Esther Morrison and Ezra Morrison. And Ezra, you want to say who this is, who you're interviewing?
This is my great-grandma, Esther Morrison. She's 104.
I'm
104.
I'm 103.
Oh, okay.
I'm only
She's only 103. She's not 104.
That's not age. What year were you born? Before we just start.
1919.
Right, well, okay.
January 4th, 1919. I know how old I am.
Okay.
I've been celebrating for a long time.
I'm gonna ask you some questions, okay?
Okay, honey.
So, first up, what do you think is the most different about being a kid now versus when you were a kid?
Well, when I was a kid, we didn't have a refrigerator or freezer. We got the ice with a milkman. An iceman came by on a horse and wagon, and he used a tong and pick the ice off of the wagon and put it in our ice box.
Oh, that's cool.
And we thought that was cool.
Number 2, what was it like being a Jewish kid back then? What was Shabbat like for you?
Well, I went to Sunday school, and we always had a Shabbos dinner. We had gefilte fish, chicken soup with matzo balls, and chicken, and then lemon cream pie.
Oh.
And we always lit the candles and said the prayer over the bread and the wine. And my father wore a yarmulke in those days because we were conservative Jews. I didn't know any different, although we had very few Jewish children in my class, but we never had any problems or knew any difference.
Okay. Number 3, did you and your family attend Passover?
Oh, we always attended our Passover service. Seder was at my Bubby and Zadie's, that's my grandma and grandpa's house. And the whole family was there. In fact, it's surprising. They had a little kitchen, and my grandma made everything. She couldn't put it in the refrigerator. She just made everything fresh, and we had a full meal. And we sat at that table a long time with the prayer book.
No short service.
No.
Gigi, do you remember the 4 questions? Ma nishtana.
Oh, I remember them, but I never said them. We always had younger children than me that would say them.
Can you do it with Ezra right now?
Pardon?
Can you do it with Ezra?
Well, I'm sorry to say I really can't, but I'm proud when I heard you say it one Seder. We were together.
Amen. Next one.
Well, this is just a translation.
Shebecho halelot halelot she'ar yirakot she'ar yirakot halayla zeh kulo matzah halayla zeh
Can I go in the kitchen? Okay. Number 4. Did you ride a bike? Do you remember if it had gears? Could you change the speed?
Did I ride a bike? No, we didn't have. I never had a bike, and my brother only rode the bike with the girl who lived next door. She let him ride a bike, but my mother wouldn't buy a bike. But when he was 14, he was driving a car.
Okay. Number 5. Did you have any brothers or sisters? If yes, did you ever fight or argue with them?
Oh, I'm sure we did. We get along. My sister and I get along so well. In fact, that's where I am today with Aunt Yvette. But we just squabble as kids. All children squabble. But, it's not serious.
Okay. Number 6. Was there a teacher that you still remember?
I remember one teacher, but I don't remember her name. But I remember she gave me a bad score on one of my report cards, and I felt very bad. I was ashamed to go home because my brother was so smart, and here I wasn't doing well in spelling.
I'm bad at spelling also. 7. Who was your best friend? When were you a kid?
When I was a kid, I had a neighbor who lived next door, and we walked to school miles because our mothers didn't have a car to drive. Our dad took the one car to work, so we would walk. And years later, I met this same friend down in Florida, and we played bridge together for many, many years. She just now passed away at 100. This was a few years ago, and she was a year older than I was at the time.
Number 8. Did you have to do chores around the house? If so, what kind?
No, I really didn't do chores because we did have help in our house.
Did you get water from the well?
I don't think so.
What?
Did you get water from the well?
No, we didn't have a well. We had indoor plumbing. Yeah. But the biggest thing I've seen is technology. We didn't have that. When we used the phone in the beginning, it was a party line. So somebody else was on the same line. You had to wait till they got off the line so you could use it. And then the operator would place the call sometime for you.
Number 9. How did you get by without air conditioning? Did you mind it?
We didn't realize it. You either had a fan or you opened the window. But we didn't realize one year when we went to Florida, my brother gave us his car and it had air conditioning in it. But we went all the way to California without air conditioning.
Number 10. What did you do during the summer? Were there children camps?
Oh, yes, there were camps. I went once. I did not like camp, but I remember as about 15-year-old, I went to a federation, had a house for children who were underprivileged, and I worked there one day a week, and we gave them breakfast and lunch. I was glad to do that. My parents taught me about charity. I remember going at Passover time and helping pack baskets of food to give to the poor.
Beautiful.
Number 11. Do you remember a movie or radio show that you liked a lot when you were a kid?
Well, on Friday night, there was a radio program. You know, we didn't have TV until I think your grandpa was born in about 50, way after your grandpa was born. In the 50s, I think in 1952, we bought our first television.
First one in the neighborhood.
And the first one in our neighborhood, and some of the children came and brought a sandwich so they could have their either supper or snack watching our television. And they weren't big like the ones you have today. They were a big box.
Do you remember a song that you liked when you were a kid? Was there a singer that you liked?
Well, I tell you, the first song I remember, my uncle was dancing with me in the upstairs of our house, and it's 3:00 in the morning, and that was the song that he was taught to dance with, and so I do remember that.
Did your family have a car? If yes, what kind? Were cars really expensive?
Well, we did have a car, and my father, as I say, drove to work. And years ago, when I was a little girl, the cars had running boards on them. So sometimes people would stand on the running board and hold on to the inside if they weren't going far.
14. Was medical care different back then? Did your doctor come to your house if you got sick?
Yeah, our doctors in those days would come to your house if you were sick. But I do remember going to the doctor's office when I was about 8, 9 years old, because I didn't like going to the doctor. So I remember that.
Last but not least, what wisdom do you have to help us through the pandemic?
I'm very careful. I only go to a restaurant, and if I can eat out, I wear a mask on my elevator, and when I'm with people that I don't know. But when I'm with my sister, I don't wear a mask because we've all had the shots.
Grandma, if you had one piece of advice for Ezra, what would it be for the next generation? What kind of advice would you give to the next generation?
Always be truthful with whatever you say or do. And just keep your sunny side up. That's what I tell all of my grandchildren. Keep your sunny side up. And I love you a bushel and a peck.
Love you too.
Grandma, do you think that Dad could come on the screen and we could all do the Shema together?
Pardon?
So we all do the Shema together? Yeah?
Sure.
1, 2, 3. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Beautiful. Thank you, Grandma. Thank you, Mark.
Well. Happy Valentine's Day.
Bye. Happy Valentine's.
Shema every night before I go to bed in my prayers. And I pray for you good health. Love you.
Love you.
לדור ודור נגיד God לך. לדור ודור we protect this chain from generation to generation. לדור ודור these lips will praise your name. לדור ודור נגיד God לך. לדור ודור we protect this chain from generation to generation. לדור ודור these lips will praise your name.